we start this video, I want to send my deepest condolences to the families and friends that were affected during this case. I also want to give a huge trigger warning to anyone that is about to watch this case. And I also want to state that this video and all of my videos are for educational purposes only. User discretion is advised. When two parents go missing in Windsor, Wisconsin, Chandler Halderson reported his parents Bart and Krista Halderson missing on July 7th of 2021. Chandler claimed that his parents left with friends for the 4th of July weekend to their cabin in northern Wisconsin. Mitchell, 24 years old, worked in tech. Chandler, 23 years old, college student, living at home, were the two sons of, pictured here, Bart and Krista Halderson. Chandler talked about a promising internship at American Family Insurance and a new job he had landed at SpaceX. Friday morning, July 2nd, Krista didn't show up at work. No call, no show. This was not like Krista. A coworker became extremely concerned, as Krista never did anything like this. Dan, Krista's coworker, called and texted Krista several times, but got no response. Later that afternoon, Dan and his girlfriend drove over to Bart and Krista's, knocked on the front door, peered through the windows, and saw a coffee table laying on its side. He saw that both cars were also in the garage, so he began to walk behind the house. And Chandler peered out the side door and told Dan that Bart and Krista had gone up to the cabin for an emergency. Now, Dan was relieved with Chandler's answer, but continued to text Chandler over the weekend about Bart and Krista. Later, Chandler called Dan and told him that he was bored, and Dan invited Chandler over for fireworks. Chandler mentioned that he talked to his parents prior to going to Dan's, and they told him that they would be back by that following Monday. Krista did not show up for work on that Monday or Tuesday. By Wednesday, July 7th, Dan knew that something was wrong. Dan pushed Chandler to file a missing persons report. Chandler walked into one of the local precincts to report his parents missing. Detectives began their investigation right at the Halderson's home on Oak Spring Circle Drive. Chandler walks detectives around the home and acts like he knows absolutely nothing. Bart and Krista did not mention to their oldest son, Mitchell, or any other family members or friends that they were going to this cabin for any given reason. And according to Chandler, his parents were picked up by a couple that he didn't even know. The day after Chandler reported his parents missing, Mitchell and his fiance, which Mitchell was the oldest son of Bart and Krista, so Chandler's brother, him and his fiance drove up 3 hours north to the cabin to see if there were any signs of his parents, Bart and Krista. The police met Mitchell and his fiance there and found nothing. There's footage, they're breaking in the door, they're walking all around. There's no signs of anybody being there for a really long time. During this time, Chandler was on his own hunt. Let's emphasize hunt. Going through the neighborhood, asking homeowners if they had seen his parents. Here's a wonderful still image of Chandler at one of the neighbors' house, trying to see if they had seen his parents. Adam Duxter, who worked for a local news station, had still not heard back from the sheriff's office. So he took it upon himself to go to the Halderson home to interview Chandler. Chandler agreed to the interview, but did not want his face to be shown. And this is what he stated to the news station. So my last message that I got from them was they were going to White Lake for the 4th of July and that their plan, or from my knowledge, they were going to Langlade County to a cabin, their cabin. Then an anonymous tip from an owner of a farm outside of town called in. Chandler had been out at and over near that property around the 4th of July weekend. The owner was the friend of Chandler's girlfriend, Kat. You might also know her as Catherine Melander. The owner said that she was with the couple at the farm on July 4th. She told deputies that she was surprised to see Chandler again the very next day, and this time he was alone. And I quote, "I saw him coming from the wood line. His car was parked back up to the field." Deputies began searching, and the police picked up Chandler and took him to the station for an interview. Chandler claims that his dad Bart was at home working and that later he had dinner with both of his parents. And that's when they told him that they were going to go meet their friends at their cabin up north. During this interview, other deputies were combing through the farm and made a gruesome discovery that quickly changed the tone of this interview. They had discovered human remains on July 8th of 2021, and the remains of an adult male 20 miles from Bart and Krista's home. This ended up being Chandler's father's torso. Once this is brought up during this interview, and I will link the interview down below, Chandler lawyers up. And there really wasn't much to it. He played his story as much as he could and lawyered up the moment that the remains were brought up. It was game over for him. The grass had been matted down as if there had been a car driven through there. So we're talking about the farm where anonymous tip came in that Chandler was over there, backed his car up. That's where they had been combing through, and they found some of the remains of Bart Halderson. And this is what led to the police finding the adult male torso that was also concealed with twigs and sticks. Cutting instruments were also found hidden in an old oil drum, scissors, pruning shears, and a broken bone saw. He dismembered his parents. All located in the same area where Chandler Halderson was seen earlier in the week. Police turned their full attention to Chandler Halderson. Chandler was now the prime suspect in this case. While testing was being done to the evidence that was collected from the farm, the police had arrested Chandler for lying to them. The arrest was based on Chandler's providing false information in regards to a missing person. Chandler's girlfriend, Kat, had a very hard time believing that Chandler would be capable of doing something like this. And I will tag in the description box her interrogations, not really an interrogation, an interview. The girl's sweet. It was very sad. She had no clue what this man was capable of. And there is even a part in I think it was the prosecution's closing arguments where the lead prosecutor is like, Catherine doesn't understand how lucky she is because he could have killed her. He truly could have killed her. On Saturday, July 10th of 2021, the victim found in the woods was identified as Bart Halderson. Preliminary autopsy results would reveal Bart had been shot at least 2 times in the back. Just like any normal person, you're probably wondering, what the hell was the motive here? What motive? Where? Why would somebody kill their parents because of the amount of lies that they webbed around themselves? You're telling me he was so terrified of telling his parents the truth? He was so terrified in such a way to commit this type of crime? I've seen other cases like this, but not nearly in this realm. So I did write down a list of what the state came up with for a motive, and it's the most that anybody can wrap their heads around because this man is a psychopath. So, what was the motive? For months, Chandler had been telling everyone, including his childhood friend, that he was enrolled at Madison College. And This was during the 2021 spring semester. Detectives believed that his parents had no idea that he actually wasn't in school. They said when his parents questioned him about his transcripts, the computer savvy Chandler crafted an extensive amount of emails that seemed to come from the college. None of these people actually existed in real life or actually exist in real life. It was just all Chandler. All of the emails were from Chandler. In June of 2021, Bart Halderson called Madison College, pretending to be Chandler, and got an answer that he wasn't expecting. I don't see that you were admitted in any program. That came from a Madison College official. Now remember, Bart had called Madison College and was pretending to be Chandler, and they're like, we don't see that you're admitted, you're in any program. Bart had discovered that not only had Chandler been lying about that IT degree, but there was no internship with American Family Insurance either. He didn't have a job and he was not enrolled in school. And that big SpaceX job was just another fabricated lie made by Chandler. According to detectives, Bart was planning to meet at the college with his son on Thursday, July 1st. Around 2 p.m., Bart sent Chandler the following text. I'm ready whenever you are. That text is believed to be the last text that Bart had ever sent. 7 days later, Bart's remains were found. Next, investigators got a search warrant for the Halderson home. No weapon was found there, but a shell casing was found in the basement. Several areas inside the house tested positive for blood. Chandler was now being charged with first-degree homicide, hiding the corpse, and mutilating a corpse. On July 15th of 2021, he was formally charged with his father's murder and was being held in the Dade County Jail. But where was Krista, his mother? Chandler was lawyered up and not talking, but his loyal girlfriend Kat was, and she had a damning piece of evidence about her boyfriend from a social media app, Snapchat. You know, the app that all these young kids use. And wow, Snapchat was the biggest clue for this case. So Chandler was lawyered up, like I said, but Kat was very consistent with screenshotting images. Chandler had been a little, let's say he had some infidelity issues in their relationship prior. So Kat had convinced him to allow her to locate him. And I guess apparently on Snapchat, I don't have Snapchat, but apparently on Snapchat, your little avatar can drop where you're at. So I'm assuming it's something like Life 360, but through Snapchat, you can text and do all that stuff. So Kat consented to a full download of her phone, which was the major breakthrough for this case. Kat would track Chandler's location due to prior infidelity, as I said, and messages posted on Snapchat on July 1st at 7:30 a.m. And Chandler wrote to Kat stating, I hardly slept. And Kat wrote back and said, I'm sorry, B. Why? I'm assuming that she says she uses the letter B for babe or baby. I'm not sure. Chandler says, I don't know. Things haven't been going well for me lately. So I'm trying to plan for the next thing to fuck me over. I had a great future planned and it's falling apart. Kat was worried by Chandler's tone in these messages. So 2 days later, she checked Chandler's location and noticed Chandler's location was nearly 25 miles from home. Kat saved the image at 9 a.m. by the Wisconsin River. Chandler was at this location for around 45 minutes. Woo! Search teams ended up finding 2 legs cut into different sections. DNA test confirmed it was Krista, Chandler's mother. Chandler was now being charged with both of their murders. So both Bart and Krista Halderson, his mother and his father. Chandler was now being charged with both of his parents' murders. In January of 2022, Chandler went on trial for the murder of both of his parents at the Dane County Courthouse. William Brown, assistant district attorney, led the case. With a bold and gut-wrenching opening statement, this prosecutor was ready to get justice for Bart and Krista, just what they deserved. And I stated this before, the lead prosecutor in this case was a dog. He was ready to go. He was ready to get this kid behind bars for life. So, murder weapon. What was it? Where was it? All of these questions. Where was this murder weapon? And how did Chandler get this murder weapon? Well, we're going to get to that. Andrew Smith. So Andrew Smith became friends with Chandler, just like most guys do. You guys are playing online. I think it was like Counter-Strike or something of that sort. And at some point, Chandler had mentioned over and over his favorite type of weapon. And when Andrew was done with the military, he came back to the States, surprised Chandler, drove up a few states to surprise him, and brought him this weapon as a gift. And he stated in his testimony that he gifted him this gun because he never used it. He didn't like how it shot. Now, I personally, I am not a, I've never been into that. So I don't really know or understand, nor am I going to go down that whole route. But he gifted it to him as, you know, I guess a guy-to-guy friend. And he signed it over to him. Not completely. I don't think it was like a complete legal transaction, but enough for it to be okay. Which I don't even know what that means. Andrew Smith had nothing to do with this crime. Andrew Smith did not know that Chandler was going to commit these crimes with this gun. So Andrew gifted Chandler this semi-automatic weapon with 480 rounds of ammunition. 2 weeks later, after this gun was gifted to Chandler by Andrew Smith, whom we just saw prior to this scene here, Chandler had asked Kat to bring over a few cleaning supplies over to his house. The following day, he told her that he had stepped on some broken glass from the fireplace. She brought him a Swiffer mop. I'm assuming like I think it was like a Swiffer wet jet, one that has like the liquid in the chamber and the little disposable pads. And then he requested a brown bottle of hydrogen peroxide. I think she brought him 2 because her mom had 2 at her house. There was 0 evidence that Kat played any role in the murder or cleanup of Bart and Krista Halderson. Other damning evidence was from a neighbor's security camera of a view from behind the Halderson's residence. There was a flickering glow from the fireplace window area, so we're going to say right here, for hours in the very early AM. I think I clocked it at, was around 1:36 a.m. when I was watching the trial. I could be a little off though. A forensic expert testified that there were a grand total of 230 bone fragments in the fireplace. The defense did not address any of the key elements to this case, and Chandler didn't testify, and the defense didn't call any witnesses. The defense closed out their final argument stating that there was not enough direct evidence to find Chandler Halderson guilty. Clearly, 12 jurors disagreed, and myself and I disagree. So I wrote a little keynote, and sometimes when I'm trying to gather all the evidence and information, research about these cases, I'll write down, obviously, the key facts of these cases, but then sometimes I'll get little side notes. And there was one specifically that I wrote about Chandler Halderson's defense attorney. I personally found this defense attorney's style or personality very off-putting, and I believe that her tone, her manner, not her manners, but her tone and her aura, and just this very and you can watch it in the trial that I'll link everything. It's very off-putting. It's very, I wrote it as in, you could tell that she herself did not believe in what she was saying. It was very much, we already know that you think he's guilty. He's a liar. We already know that. But if we're gonna call him a liar, are we gonna call him a liar again? It was just very word salad, very off-putting. So a little over 2 hours, the verdict was in, and Chandler was found guilty of first-degree intentional homicide ×2, guilty of providing false information to authorities, guilty of mutilating a corpse ×2, guilty of hiding a corpse ×2. So he was guilty on all 8 charges. And on March of 2022, Halderson finally wanted to speak. He stayed silent since he lawyered up the entire time. He also didn't testify, like I said. So this was Chandler's statement, and I quote, "Your Honor, I want to take this opportunity to state my intent to appeal my convictions. If there are any lawyers listening and willing to take on my appeal, take a moment to please reach out to me. It's not that I do not have feelings. It's that I was just warned to not show them due to the scrutiny of this case. Thank you." Halderson was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Chandler Halderson is serving his life sentence at Dodge Correctional Institution, DCI, which is an adult male maximum security institution. And if this prison sounds familiar, it's because there are several widely known inmates whom had served time there or are still currently incarcerated there. Starting with Jeffrey Dahmer, Stephen Avery, which is from the Netflix series, I believe it's called How to Make a Murder or something along that sort. Chris Watts, Daryl Brooks, but Daryl Brooks was relocated in February of last year. I did try to go and try to find Chris Watts on there. I don't know why I couldn't, but according to documents, he is still there. So I will go ahead and link all of the awesome trial footage down below, some cool clips that I find along the way, and I appreciate every single one of you for being here. Please make sure to like this video, subscribe if you aren't, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.